Thanks for joining me. In this particular session, we're going to discuss the basic method or approach to Microsoft Excel. It's referred to as the Beginner's Guide to Microsoft Excel Level 2. We're going to put together a very simple spreadsheet, and it is my sincere hopes that the approach that I've chosen for this tutorial will be a way that you will comprehend and retain the information. However, I would like for you to know that there's more than one way to format a spreadsheet. That being said, let's get started. Before we get started, I would like to take this time to thank you for joining me for Level 2 of Microsoft Basic Excel. Once again, we're going to be using Windows 2010. Earlier, when using Windows 2010 on Lesson 1, we referred to this little flag icon, open it, to locate the Excel spreadsheet. However, we actually saved it to the desktop this go round. So we're going to come here and double click on this icon of Microsoft Excel, and we're going to get started from here. In this session, we're going to actually start from where we left off in the last lesson. The reason why is because when formatting a spreadsheet, there are things that were not covered in the previous session, but there are things that are very important and things that you need to know. And I didn't want to overwhelm you in lesson 1. So like before, we're going to get started by discussing and learning the language for Microsoft Excel. In lesson 2 or level 2, there are other terms that you will learn and things that you will need to identify when moving forward with formatting an Excel spreadsheet. So the first thing you should notice is that many of the terms that you see here are not the same as the terms that we use in level 1. However, we will be using many of those terms as well. So it is very important that you review level 1 Excel spreadsheet video before moving on to level 2. Now, you'll notice here that we have copy and paste. And like before, many of the command groups are going to be in the home ribbon. Copy and paste is also located in the home ribbon. Two very common functions that are used in Microsoft Excel daily. All right. You also have a view tab. Now the view tab is located along with the other tabs at the top of the Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Earlier in level 1, we said we had tabs that are located here, and clearly in this particular instance, we're going to be using several of them. All right, view tab will be one of them, and in the view tab, you have a page layout, but you also have page layout tab as well. So again, these are all terminologies that we'll be using in this particular lesson. You'll notice that in the view tab, we have a ruler, and I apologize if I'm hopping backward and forward, but again, in this particular level, you are going to be moving between ribbons, so hopefully it won't be too distracting to you. All right. So what we're going to focus on for the most part in this level is that we're going to basically show you how to add on to the spreadsheet. We're going to also talk about how to actually write formulas as opposed to using the automatic formulas. And so many of the terms that you see here are going to be pertaining to how to format a page that will show on a printed piece of paper. All right. So this is where the print page setup comes into play. The print preview, portrait, landscape, the letter size and legal size, and the print active sheets. These are all terms that will be used as we format the page to print in a manner that you will prefer on a piece of paper. All right. So keep that in mind. We also have the sort, ascending and descending, and it can be found in the access toolbar. All right. Remember, the access toolbar is where we place items that we are going to be using frequently. And all the items that are checked are the items that we're going to be using frequently. And you'll notice here that you have a sort ascending and sort descending. All right. We also have the insert function, another term and another function that we're going to be using. And it's not going to be the tab insert that you see here. All right. The insert function that we're going to be referring to is actually on the home ribbon and is here. All right. You also have the delete function, which is also located in the home ribbon right next to the insert function. We have the save and the save as. This is the save, and the save as will be located in the file tab. Again, we're going to show you the difference between the two, and there's a stark difference between the two that you certainly need to be aware of. All right. So I'm going to go back down to the home ribbon. We have spell check. Again, spell check is also located here in the quick access toolbar. And we're going to be writing formulas. Now, we have a formula tab, but we're not going to be using the formula tab to write formulas. We're going to, again, stick to basic formulas, adding, subtracting, division. And so it's important that you understand that, we're not going to get in too much detail in that area. All right. We also have the normal function, which is here, again, in the home ribbon. And we have a workbook. And the workbook is actually what we're going to be using going forward. Now, we were in a workbook in level 1, but it was just 2 sheets. Here, we're actually using 5 sheets. We have a sample page, which is our first tutorial. And now we have the sample 2 page, which is what we're going to be referring to in this tutorial. And this is the actual spreadsheet that we're going to create in this tutorial. And these are the formula items that we're going to be referring to when writing a formula. All right. We have the tutorial, which is, as you can see, it's completely blank. So we're going to start from scratch like we did in level 1. And we're coming back over to the keywords. Now, because we have multiple sheets, and these are all sheets in this project, this is referred to as a workbook. Now, if we were only going to be using one sheet, and everything that we were going to be doing would be on sheet 1, as you can see here, this would be a worksheet. But because we're going to be going between sheets, and these sheets all have names, which is sample 1, sample 2, tutorial, and keywords, this project is now considered part of a workbook, and you will surely recognize the difference as we move forward. And again, we've already shown you the review tab that we're going to be also referring to in level 1. So here we're going to use protect and unprotect, and I'm going to explain the difference and how important that is. And this is, again, the protect sheet that we were showing you earlier, and the workbook I also just showed you. Okay, so we're going to not only protect the sheet, but we're going to also protect the workbook as well. All right, so let's get started. As a reminder, this is a continuation from the previous session, and as such, we're going to start by revisiting the spreadsheet from sample 1. You'll notice here that this is where we left off in the previous session. However, we didn't cover certain aspects that followed creating the spreadsheet. In other words, printing the spreadsheet. Though the spreadsheet clearly looks acceptable on the computer, does it really match what it would look like if printed? So let's visit the print page. You can see here that not all of the spreadsheet is actually featured on the print page. So let's return now back to the actual format. Please note that when I wanted to view what the page would look like when printed, I actually went to the quick access toolbar and clicked on the little icon that represents print preview. By clicking on it, I could actually see what the page would look like in advance of printing it. Now, I could have also, let's go back, I could have also came up to the File tab, scroll down to Print, and saw the same photo. But as you'll notice, I cut out quite a few steps by simply going to the quick access toolbar. And that's just a reminder of just how convenient the quick access toolbar can be. So, noting that we never addressed the print page layout in our last session, this is where we're going to start in this particular lesson. In order to do that, we're going to actually refer back to the original spreadsheet in sample 1. Now, as a reminder, we're going to go up to the quick access toolbar and we're going to click on the print preview page. And you can see that the content was not all added to the page if we were to print it today. So let's go back now to address that. You'll notice here that I'm actually hitting the Home tab to go back. But in later versions of Excel, such as 2013 and 2016, there's actually an arrow that you click to go back. Again, I just want you to take note of that if you have a later version. So here, I'm going to hit the Home tab. And we're going to start addressing how to enter this column, column D, onto the print page, because you'll note that it is column D that is not shown here. As I stated several times in the past, there are multiple ways to approach almost everything in Excel. Setting a page to print properly is no different. Here we're going to discuss at least 3 options, though there are more depending on the size of the spreadsheet. Because we have a small spreadsheet consisting of only 4 columns, we're going to go with a more simpler page setup. And again, there are 3 options in this particular case. The first option is going to deal with the actual tab that's called Page Layout. So we're going to come up to the Page Layout and we're going to click on it. And you'll notice here that there are margins, orientation, size, print area, and on and on. These are all command groups. At this point, we've already established that the best way to determine how the spreadsheet is going to look on a printed page is by going to the print preview. So you'll notice here that these are the margins. So the margins that we mentioned earlier are actually the distance that the spreadsheet is from the edges of the paper, whether it be from here to here, or here to here, or here to here, or on and on and on. So clearly we want to move the spreadsheet over a bit, therefore we're going to have to deal with the margins. All right, so we're going to do that now. And when returning back to the spreadsheet, a clear sign of where the page break is these lines here. Now, up until this point, I had that feature turned off because I didn't want to see these lines. But for the purpose of formatting the spreadsheet to fit on a page, it is necessary that you see these lines. And more than likely, you're going to see them on your computer anyway, unless you too turn off that particular feature. All right? So this is what you would normally see once going to the print preview page and returning back to the spreadsheet. You're going to see these page breaks. All right? Which is a good thing in this particular case, again, because you can now see where the spreadsheet is going to break off when being printed. So you're going to have a page here and a page here, with 3 columns being on one page and the 4th column being on another page. Clearly, that is not something that we want. So we're going to go ahead and see how to move this column over into this page area here, with this line being over here. All right. So the first thing you want to do, again, is make sure that we're in page layout, and we want to deal with the margins. All right. And in order to make sure that the margins are as far over as they possibly can be to the edge of the paper, we want to go to narrow. All right. Now, by default, they're going to always be set on normal, which gives you that little distance that you saw earlier. But by placing it on narrow, you can see that the edges are much closer to the edge of the paper. So we're going to put this on narrow. Now, of course, the lines didn't move, so we still have 2 pages that would print at this point. So the next step you would do is to come over to where it says scale to fit. Now, these are command groups that are listed under scale to fit. And the width is what we're dealing with. The width of the spreadsheet exceeds 1 page. We want to bring that width over some and condense it. So we're going to go to fit to 1 page. And you'll notice that when we clicked on fit to 1 page, that line was moved. If we were to go over now to print preview, you will have the entire spreadsheet placed on that particular page. That is option 1. Now we're going to take a look at a second option. I'll call it the print preview page setup option. In this particular case, we're actually going to do everything from the print preview page. So far, I've been going to the quick access toolbar and clicking on this quick print icon to get to the preview page. However, just for the sake of it, I'm going to go ahead and go to the File tab, just because in some cases that may be what you're most comfortable with. That being said, we're going to scroll down to the word print, and as you can see, the way the page is going to look if it were to be printed at this particular time. You can see that column 4 is missing and that the margins are a bit wide. But instead of returning to the spreadsheet like we've been doing, we're going to actually do everything from the preview page. All right, so if you were to come here, you will notice that many of the features that we used earlier on the spreadsheet are actually here. So we're going to look at the margins, and you'll notice that it's normal And normal means that this is the normal distance between the spreadsheet and the end of the page. We're going to come down to narrow as before. Now we're going to come down to where it says no scaling. That is the default setting. And if we were to click on fit to one page, you would notice that it would all fit to one page as before. But we're not going to use this particular feature because we can also use this one. So you have an option between this, and it's pretty much the same result. But here you can clearly see the numbers. So you may choose this approach as opposed to this approach in most cases. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to click fit to one page. And we're going to click OK. And you see right away that all of the columns are now present. And that is all there is to it when setting the spreadsheet to print to one page. So let's go back to home and we're going to visit option 3. Option 3 is actually the approach that I use most often, though my spreadsheets tend to be much larger and involves far more details than what we have here. It is a bit more tedious when compared to the previous two, so it is one that I wouldn't recommend for a simple spreadsheet such as this. But nevertheless, I'm going to show it to you just the same. So in option 3, we're going to actually go to the View tab. And as you can see, there is a page layout. But when I click on this page layout icon, you'll notice that several pages appear. You have page 1 and you have page 2. You also have a header, which I use quite a bit, though I won't be using it in this particular example. So because I use the header a lot, I tend to go with this approach. All right. So, and the header is different from the title that you see here. Nevertheless, as you can see, that if the pages were to print, you would have 2 pages as before. You would have page 1 and you would have page 2. And this is exactly what they would look like. All right. So what I normally do is I actually manually adjust the columns at this point, in which I come over to the ruler. Remember, we're using a ruler in this particular case, and the ruler is always going to be at the top when you're dealing with a page layout such as this. So you can come over here, and I don't know if you can see it, but there's an arrow that's pointing in both directions. If I hold down on the left side of my mouse and drag it over, I can actually drag it over as much as I need it, meaning that I can actually go farther than the actual preset margins, which is one of the reasons why I use it. But in this particular case, I'm going to stop here. I can actually see in real time how the spreadsheet is actually moving over. So in this particular case, I have a little space here that I can play with. So I'm going to hold down on the left side of my mouse and drag it over to here. Now, obviously that was not enough to get this column over. So at this particular time, I can literally just maneuver the columns a bit. Just so. And voila, you have a page. Now, clearly this is not the best approach for a simple spreadsheet like this, but when you're dealing with a much larger spreadsheet that has far more columns, this may often be the best approach to take. Again, that will come farther down the road in lessons that are much more advanced than what we have here. But in the meantime, I just wanted to show you that this is an option, and it is definitely one that you may want to consider when dealing with much larger spreadsheets. And that is something I'll show you when I'm dealing with a much larger spreadsheet. All right. But in the meantime, let's go back now to the normal spreadsheet format. And when you go to the print preview page, you can see that the entire spreadsheet is on the page that we're going to print. And that is the end of option 3. And the final options are the page layouts that we're going to be presenting in this session. It's time now to turn our focus toward formatting our new spreadsheet. But before doing that, I have a tip that I consider to be very valuable, so listen closely. Whenever you find yourself needing to create a new spreadsheet, it is always best to see if you have an existing spreadsheet that you can modify. That will save you a lot of time and it is probably, without a doubt, the most efficient way of creating a new spreadsheet, because at that point you simply modify an existing spreadsheet as opposed to starting from scratch, which is what we're going to do here. This approach will save you valuable time and legwork and increase your productivity quite a bit, impressing all of those that you work with. Therefore, this is the approach that you and I are going to take in this session. So unlike in our previous session for level 1 beginners, where we actually started out with a blank Excel page, we're not going to start like that in this particular situation. We're going to actually locate an existing spreadsheet. In this case, it's the spreadsheet that we created in session 1. What we're going to do, however, is that we don't want to eliminate this particular spreadsheet. We just want to use this format when creating a new spreadsheet. So in order to do that, we're going to come up to the File tab, and we're going to go to the Save As button. Now, what the Save As button does, it allows you to take a spreadsheet and give it a new name. When you give it a new name, you now have a new spreadsheet along with the existing spreadsheet. So we're going to change this spreadsheet to 02. Just the simplest deviation in name will actually create a new spreadsheet. When saving this one under a new name, we can decide if we're going to put it in the same location or the same file. For instance, we could open up a file folder and we can input it there. But for the sake of convenience, I'm going to leave this one on the desktop as well. So I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to say save, but it's saved under a new name. Now, when saving it under a new name, you're no longer in danger of eliminating the previous sheet. It is still there. So now we're going to go ahead and we're going to position our mouse on the title in this particular case. And we're going to hold down on the left side of the mouse and we're going to scroll down to highlight all of the content. And on the keyboard, we're going to locate the delete key. And if the spreadsheet is not protected, which most of the time it is not, when clicking on the delete key on the keyboard, all of the content should be removed without any issue. At this point, you can now add additional rows by clicking on the last row that is formatted, which is in this particular case the number 6, because we want the rows to go all the way across the spreadsheet, not just the cell. So we're going to go with the last row that's formatted in the desired format that we're seeking, and we're going to click on the number. Make sure that the arrow is pointing to your right when you click on the number. Remember, rows are represented by numbers. And we're going to come up to the ribbon. In this particular case, it's the home ribbon. And we're going to click on Insert. And we're going to insert as many rows as desired. In this particular case, and just for the example, I'm just going to stop here. You can go as many rows down as you need. And you can also come over and click on the letter B or C or A or whichever letter that is within the format, and you can add an additional column by also clicking on the insert. Now mind you, I'm actually clicking on the picture. I'm not clicking on the name or the drop down. I'm literally clicking on the picture to add columns, and you could do the same. All right, remember, if you go too far or make a mistake, you can always refer to the quick access toolbar and go to the undo or redo arrow. In this particular case, we're just going to go ahead and undo all the extra cells and rows that we just added. And click here. And now you're back at square one with an empty spreadsheet. So what I didn't say earlier is that when we completed the Save As and we changed the name of our current spreadsheet, the name actually appeared at the very top of the spreadsheet, the new name, which would allow you to actually confirm that you're now working under a new spreadsheet and not the existing one. So clearly it is beneficial to refer to an existing spreadsheet if you can find one that has the similar features of a formatted spreadsheet that you desire. However, let us say that we did not want to delete the content that is in an existing spreadsheet. We simply want to add to it, which in most cases is what most situations require. Over time, Most spreadsheets tend to grow both in rows as well as in columns. And that is the case that we're going to make in this particular session. So instead of taking an existing spreadsheet and deleting the content, we're going to actually refer to an existing spreadsheet and keep the content and simply add to it. So we're going to come over to sample one, which is the spreadsheet that we completed in session one, and we have two options. One option would be to use the existing spreadsheet and simply highlight one of the lower rows in the spreadsheet. In this case, we're just going to grab row 6, or we're going to highlight row 6. We're going to go to Insert, and we're going to add to it. Clearly, you can see some of the content fell below the empty rows. Well, that's not an issue. When this happens, you can simply go to the first cell, click down on the left side of your mouse, drag it over to the last cell with content, and do a copy paste. You're going to come up here to copy in the ribbon, and you're going to go to the original cell that the content was in, and you're going to click paste. All right. At this point, you return to the lower content and highlight all of the cells that you originally copied and hit delete on your keyboard to remove. So let's go ahead and get started with our project. You'll notice here that in the workbook, I am on the tutorial spreadsheet. So basically, I've located the spreadsheet that I want to modify. Again, I do not want to delete the content. I simply want to add to it. All right. So let's refer over to our sample for this session. You'll notice here that in the sample, there are actually 5 columns, A, B, C, D, and E. Whereas in the previous spreadsheet, there are 4 columns, A, B, C, and D. Clearly, I want to add a column, and I need to add additional rows. In the original, I only had 7 rows, but here I have a total of 15 rows. So we're going to start by first adding rows. And again, we're going to come over to this a little bit later when we get ready to do our formula. All right, so let's refer back over to our tutorial. We're going to come over to row 6 because row 6 is the last row that has borders. And what we want are all rows with borders. We do not want to start with row 7 because there are no borders throughout the spreadsheet. That is row 6. All right, so always keep that in mind. You only want to add rows that consist of the format that you're looking to duplicate. All right, so we're going to come up to the home ribbon and we're going to click on the picture above the word insert, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let me go back one, I'm sorry. We're going to go to row 15. So please note how I did that. I actually went back one by clicking the undo arrow. Again, the undo arrow is very, very useful. All right. So we're going to also add a column. So let's refer back over to the sample page. And we have a column for alphabet letter E. So we're going to come over to the actual column D to add a row. So we're going to add a row by clicking on the letter D and insert. And that now gave us a column E. All right, so keep that in mind. And you'll notice that the formulas that we had added also travel with the column. That is the most exciting thing about Excel. Things like this saves you a lot of time. The fact that the formula that is in column D here, when we inserted a column, it actually moved over to column E with the total. Assuming that this would be a desired move in a normal situation, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the content that traveled down when the rows were being added, and we're going to return it back to its original row. So we're going to go ahead and click on cell A14, hold down on the left side of the mouse and scroll all the way over to E14. And we're going to come up to the ribbon and we're going to click on the copy. You'll notice that when we clicked on copy, this area was highlighted with some blinking looking lines. And also the paste icon became active. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on now the cell because they have to match. So if you click on 5 cells, then the area that you're going to paste the cells to should also match. So we have 5 cells here and we have 5 cells here. So we're going to paste by simply clicking on the picture above the letter paste. You'll notice that duplicate information appeared. So now we're going to come down to the content that we want to delete, and we're going to highlight it once again by clicking down on that particular cell, cell A14, holding down on the left side of the mouse. We're going to highlight only that content, and on our keyboard we're just going to click delete. And as you can see, we're a step closer now to formatting our spreadsheet. For the sake of saving time, I'm actually not going to type in all of the content from the sample page. I'm going to copy and paste at least a portion of it. However, on your end, I need for you to manually input that content as we move forward. Now we're going to input the content from the sample page onto the new columns and rows. So let's go over to sample page 2, and we're going to highlight the area in which we're going to copy and paste over to the new spreadsheet. Keep in mind that when copying a range of information or range of cells, you need to make sure that it matches the location that you're going to paste it to. All right. So at this point, you're going to click down on cell A7, hold down on the left side of the mouse, scroll down to the end of the range that you desire to copy. You're going to come up to the ribbon and click on the word copy. And again, you'll notice that it's been highlighted with some lines that are blinking, and this is the captured area that is going to be copied. We're going to come over to the new spreadsheet, and again, we're only going to click on one cell. You do not have to click on the same range, just the one cell, the original cell where the copy and paste started. At that point, you're going to click on paste. Let's return now back to the sample, and we're going to copy the total equal and paste. Now, you may have noticed that when reviewing the sample, there is definitely a noticeable difference in the width. We're going to get to that as we move along. Returning back to our sample page, you'll also notice that we have a new category in column D. It is called the discount, and this is how it works. As an office supply chain, we purchase from a wholesaler. Based on the amount or the dollar amount of the item or items that we purchase, the wholesaler has agreed to give us a discount. You'll notice that, for instance, we're going to take pens. In our original session, we multiplied 3 pens times 67 cents to give us a total of $2.01. However, now that we are getting a discount, we had to modify our spreadsheet to include the discount. And in that discount, it is now 10 cents, and the new total is $1.91. Also, as a result, we had to reconfigure our formula to now include the subtracted 10 cents. And that is what we're going to do going forward. We're going to go ahead now and address the content of the discount column, including the word discount. So let's go back to the tutorial, and we're going to type in discount. Now, you'll note here that the word discount looks exactly like the other titles, such as supplies, quantity, and cost. That is because, remember, we're using an existing spreadsheet that has already been formatted. Therefore, when we inserted this column, the format that was here remained the same. All right. So in this particular case, we're going to go ahead and we're going to highlight that particular cell, cell D2, and we're going to come up to the ribbon, and we're going to click on this sort of color, define red, and we're going to go back, and you'll see that it matches the sample. All right. Now, for the sake of saving a little time, as before, I'm going to actually copy and paste all of the discounts as opposed to manually typing them in. However, I do want you to manually type them in. Keep in mind that we are using an existing spreadsheet for the tutorial, which means that it has already been formatted to have the dollar signs. All right, and hopefully you've watched lesson 1 so you know how to format the cells to automatically contain the dollar signs. All right, so let's go back over to sample 2. I'm going to hold down on the left side of the mouse, starting here, scroll down to the last row with dollars, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to click copy, go over to the tutorial page, click on the first cell where we started the process, and I'm going to click paste. As you can see, everything is there to match what we have here. All right, so I'm going to double click away to remove the copy mode. All right, so that is something you can keep in mind, that you can actually hit save, or you can simply click out on another cell, double click on it really quickly to remove the copy mode. Now that we've input the content into the discount column, we're going to come over to column E, and we're going to focus on the formulas that will take into account what we have in the 3 columns here. Now, going back to sample 1, remember we only had the 2 columns to take into account, and that came up with the total. However, obviously we have a 3rd column, and this column is going to now require us to subtract from these 2 items, which brings us to this area here. What you have here is a plus add symbol, which is a plus sign, a subtract symbol, a divide symbol, and a multiplication symbol. These are all symbols that are used in a formula, and they're going to be used in the formula that we're going to manually create, as opposed to creating automatically, as with sample 1 and session 1. So before we go ahead and create the formulas for the spreadsheet, I'm going to give you a few examples. So let's come over here, and I'm going to show you a few examples of how a formula would be if you were to add, subtract, divide, and multiply. Okay, so let's throw together a quick example of a formula. So we're going to use about 5, maybe, I guess about 5 numbers. All right, we're going to start here, and we're going to come across here. So we're going to put the number, we're going to start with the number 5, and clearly you can barely see that. So we're going to format it to be larger, and we're going to come across here so that all of the future numbers that we input are the same size. So we're going to come up here to the large letter A in the home ribbon, and we're just going to click on it until we get to size 18, which is right here. All right. So going forward, all of the numbers will be size 18, and they will be aligned to the right of the cell. All right. So we're going to come over here, and this will be the actual box that the formula will be in. And I want to go ahead and put a border around it. So if I were to click off it, as you can see, there's nothing there. We're going to go back to the home ribbon and go to the border icon. Click on the arrow next to it. And we're going to click on thick border right here. And when you click away, you now have a border. All right. So we're going to say the number 5 times 6. So we're going to multiply 5 times 6. And we're going to come here and we're going to subtract 4 from that. All right. And I want to say add 10 to that. And I think that should do it for this particular example. So we're going to use the addition symbol, the subtract, and the multiplication symbol for this particular formula. So we're going to come here. Now, you always start with an equal sign. All right. And you'll notice that the equal sign appeared in the formula bar up here. All right. And so basically the formula that you have here is going to always be here. You can make changes to the formula here, or you can make changes to the formula here. So I tend to make changes in the formula bar. However, I will show you how to do it both ways. So we have an equal sign, and what we want to do is identify the cell that we want the formula to begin. And we're going to start with cell I, which is column I, row 9. We're going to touch on cell I9. And you'll notice that I9 appeared in the formula bar. So we want to multiply 5 times 6. So we're going to come and we're going to use this symbol right here, the asterisk, to multiply. All right. And what do we want to multiply? We want to multiply 5 times 6. So we're going to touch on 6. Now, if I were to hit on the enter key right now, you would probably see the number 30. So let me enlarge that 30 again as well. 1, 2. All right. So I'm going to click away, and you have 30. Basically, you have 5 times 6. So I want to subtract by 4. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to double click. All right. When you double click, you can actually see the formula. Now, I did not have to double click. I could have simply touched the cell and came up to the formula bar, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to hit the minus symbol, which is here, and I'm going to touch on the 4. And again, I'm going to hit the enter key on the keyboard, and you now see 26. So you have 5 times 6 minus 4 equals 26. And I'm going to simply add the 10 to it. Again, I'm going to double click, but this time I'm going to enter the plus sign in the cell itself. And I'm going to touch on cell L9, and I'm going to hit the enter on the keyboard again, and you have 36. So this formula basically adds, subtracts, and multiplies all in one formula. All right, so just remember that. So let's just come down here to do the division, and we're going to say 36, and I'm going to enlarge that. I guess let me just go ahead and enlarge it right now. All right, will be divided by 12, which we should get the number 3 here. So this is going to be, and I'm going to go ahead and put a border. The border remain there when we clicked it the first time. Again, Excel tends to save functions based on your last function or action that you've taken. So I'm going to click on that border. I'm going to click away, and you can see now that the border is there. Again, we're going to create a formula by starting with the equal sign, and I'm going to touch on 36. I'm going to put this division symbol here, and I'm going to touch on 12. And when I hit enter on the keyboard, voila, you have 3. And let me go ahead and enlarge that again. All right, you have 36 divided by 12 equals 3. And that is how formulas work. Okay, at this point, we're going to go ahead now and we're going to remove these items. But I do want to bring something to your attention. When you close a spreadsheet and reopen it, you will no longer have the ability to undo and redo. It is as if you are starting from scratch as far as the quick access toolbar goes. All right. So in this particular case, you will have to take additional steps to remove the items. But I want to show you a little something that I often use. And in my case, I often use color in my cells. So I'm going to put color here. And occasionally, I may make a mistake. In the process of working on a project, I may accidentally be in a cell and not realize that I'm in a cell. And that happens quite often in my classes. I see students do this all the time. So we want to go ahead and we want to remove all of this. But, we clearly don't want to do the undo that many times. And you really don't have to. So what you can do is highlight a range of cells. All right. And that range of cells will encompass the area that we want to erase. And that's how I view this, as erasing. What you want to do once you highlight the range of cells, which will encompass the area that you would like to erase, you click delete on your keyboard, and that will clearly remove the values that are inside the cells. So how do you remove the fill or the color? Well, you come up to normal and you click on normal. You have now wiped the page clean. It is if nothing was ever there. Returning to the tutorial, we're going to now address the formulas. You'll notice that when I click on the first formula, it appears in the formula bar. And you'll also notice that it's going to look quite different from the formula that we're going to input manually. So let's go ahead and delete all of the existing formulas. Now, again, remember that this particular column has already been formatted. So as we enter the new formulas, they're going to calculate automatically at the very bottom. So let's start again with the equal sign. Remember, the formula is going to start with an equal sign. Once you input the equal sign, you take your mouse and you place it on the first cell in which you want the formula to start. So the formula is going to start here. We now want the formula to multiply the quantity of 3 pens times 67 cents. So at this point, we're going to input an asterisk, not a semicolon. And we're going to touch on the 67 cents. We also wanted to subtract 10 cents from that figure. So we're going to put a minus sign behind that particular cell and touch cell D3. So you have B3 times C3 minus D3. And you hit enter on the keyboard. And you have $1.91. You'll also notice that $1.91 total at the very bottom because this particular column has already been formatted. Now that the formula has been established in the original cell, we're going to duplicate that formula all the way down to the end of the spreadsheet, just above the total. If you recall our steps in session 1, we're going to duplicate those actions here. We're going to click on the cell with the formula, go to the far right corner of that particular cell, hold down on the left side of the mouse. Remember, we do not want this particular plus sign. We want this little thin plus sign that's black. When you hold down on the left side of your mouse, you're going to scroll all the way down to the very last cell that you want a formula to be input and let go. And we're going to click away. Now you have a completely functional spreadsheet. So let's run a quick test. We're going to actually change several quantities of items, and we're going to watch as the total here changes as well as the ultimate total at the very bottom. So we're going to change the number of tablets from 1 to 3. And if you will observe, you'll notice that there will be a change here, which will include the deduction as well as a change here. And we're going to make another change with staplers. We're going to change that from 1 to 8. And once again, you'll notice that there will be a change here, minus the discount or deduction. And there will be a change here. So as you can see, the spreadsheet is quite functional. Before moving on, I would like to make a footnote regarding this particular spreadsheet. Remember, it is a tutorial and it is a simple spreadsheet. You may have noticed that when I increased the quantity here and also here with the tablets and the total changed, the discount rate did not change. In a more advanced Excel spreadsheet, we can actually create a formula that will automatically change the discount rate. In this particular case, we're going to go ahead and input them manually so that you can also see the deductions in the total. And as you can see, there is a decrease in the total based on the new amounts for the discounts. So now that we've concluded that the spreadsheet format and its functionality meets our satisfaction, now it is important that we protect its most important feature, which is the formulas. If a formula is ever corrupted or compromised in any way, then believe it or not, the entire spreadsheet is more than likely going to be rendered useless. So our goal now is to show you how to protect the formulas, meaning that you should be able to change any of these particular cells without ever interfering with the actual formula that makes the spreadsheet work. And that is what we're going to do now. At this point, we're going to return to the top of the Excel spreadsheet, and we're going to refer to the tab that is called the Review tab. Now, in the Review tab, there's a ribbon, and in this ribbon, there are command groups as with the Home tab and all other tabs. Our focus is going to be on the Protect Sheet tab because this is the sheet that we're going to be focused on. Our goal is to protect only certain aspects of this particular sheet. In other words, there are going to be cells that we would like to be able to change and cells that we want to protect at all costs. All right, and I'm going to show you an example of what would happen if I were to come up here and click on Protect Sheet. By clicking on this particular icon, I am in effect stating that I want this to become a read-only file. Why? Because I haven't taken any actions to indicate anything other than that. It would ask me to go ahead and put in a password, and I'm just going to put some gibberish in here right now. And it's going to ask me to match that gibberish with the same identical gibberish, which of course I'm not going to be able to. And at this point, it's not going to allow me to protect the sheet because the password that I input does not match. So I'm going to go ahead at this particular time, and I'm going to hit this icon again. That's called Protect Sheet. And I'm going to skip the password part, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now at this point, if I were to try to change this dollar amount, a pop-up will appear. In fact, if I were to go over here, a pop-up will appear. Clearly not the results that we want. So we're going to go back up to the ribbon, and you'll notice here that the icon says Unprotect Sheet. So we're going to click on the picture, and it now says Protect Sheet. What that means is that the sheet is now unprotected. And if I want to protect it, I will go back up and click Protect Sheet. All right. So we've established that we do not want the entire spreadsheet to be protected for obvious reasons. Clearly, we want to be able to come in and change various cells over time. So to prevent this from happening when we click on the Protect mode, we're going to highlight the area that we do not want to be protected once we go into protection mode. So we're going to start with the first cell that has an item listed that we would like to change in the future. Hold down on the left side of our mouse, scroll over to the last cell that we're going to want to change at some point in time. Scroll down the entire spreadsheet to encompass the entire area that we would like to change periodically. At this point, we're going to go back now to the Home tab, and we're going to revisit the Home ribbon. Now, if you recall in Lesson 1, we spent a lot of time on the dialog box. Well, we're going to refer back to the dialog box in this particular instance as well. So we're going to click on any of the drop-down dialog box launchers. I'm just going to go with the one under the font command group. And I'm going to open up the dialog box. And if you recall, we have a list of tabs. In this particular case, we're going to refer to the Protection tab. And in that Protection tab, we have a checkbox that says Locked. Well, by default, Microsoft Excel has the entire spreadsheet to be locked if you were to hit the protection mode. Well, I do not want the entire spreadsheet to be locked. So I'm going to remove this check mark. Now, by removing it, it's going to only affect the highlighted area. It's not going to affect the entire spreadsheet. So when I hit the protection mode, the highlighted area that I have unlocked will no longer be affected by that mode. So I'm going to go ahead now and click OK. So at this point, if I were to come back over now to the Review tab and click Protect Sheet, click OK. Obviously, you can input a password. For the sake of this tutorial, I'm not going to. I'm just going to click OK. If I were to now come over and click here where there is a formula and go to my keyboard and click on any key, the pop-up box will appear. However, if I were to come over here to quantity of 3 and decide to make it 5, you'll notice that it allows me to do that. If I were to come over here and click on 87 cents, it will allow me to do that, as well as 10 cents. If I want to change that to 15 cents, it allows me to do that. If I want to change this from pens to pencils, it would allow me to do that as well. So everything in this area right here is now available for me to change. However, nothing in the formula column will change. Now, if you will bear with me for a few moments, I would like to introduce to you a feature I think that you'll find very useful going forward, and that is the sort feature. But first, I must inform you that in order to format the spreadsheet, it has to be in the unprotected mode, all right? Meaning that you cannot format a spreadsheet as long as it is protected. You can only change the content in the unprotected area. So let's go ahead and go back to the top of the ribbon, and we're going to click on Unprotect Sheet. Now, at this point, we can continue to manipulate the spreadsheet as a whole. Now, when sorting a spreadsheet, you can clearly sort it from any column or cell that you desire to start the function with, all right? In this particular case, we're going to start in the supply column. However, you can sort by quantity, cost, discount, or total. Again, however, we're going to start in the content area. And remember, when sorting a spreadsheet, it has to be within the range of cells that you want to be affected. Cannot include the title at the top of the page, all right? Unless you would desire for it to include the title. However, that is not the case here. Now, by clicking on pens, we can sort going from A through Z or from Z through A. And how do you do that? Well, let's refer to the Home tab, and you have several options. You can scroll down the Home ribbon and go to the Editing command group, and you'll see Sort and Filter. Well, clearly, we're not interested in filtering. That's a little bit more advanced. We can go over that in the future. If you were to click on this drop-down arrow, you will see Sort A through Z and Sort Z through A. This is ascending, and this is descending. However, if you were to save the sort function to your quick access toolbar, you wouldn't have to take the extra steps to sort. We can simply come over to the quick access toolbar and locate the sort descending and sort ascending here. That being said, we're going to click on the sort ascending, which puts the A at the top of the spreadsheet and the Z letters at the bottom of the spreadsheet. So again, I already have the cell highlighted that I would like the sort to start with. And now I'm going to just simply click on sort ascending. And you'll notice that the alarm clock, which starts with the letter A, is now at the top of the spreadsheet. And the water, which starts with the letter W, is at the bottom of the spreadsheet. You can reverse that by simply coming over to the sort descending and clicking on it. And now the water is at the top of the spreadsheet. However, we want to stick with the alarm clock. You will also notice that the related content for the supplies also moved along with it. For instance, remember the staplers, we had changed that to the quantity of 8. Well, as you can see, it is still the quantity of 8. And the tablets, we had changed that to the quantity of 3. It is still the quantity of 3 with a $45 discount. And the staplers, a $2.80 discount. Now we're going to display one last function before ensuring that the spreadsheet prints properly on paper, and that is called a spell check. It's always important, especially in a professional setting, to ensure that the spelling on your spreadsheet is correct. Now, some of you, if not many of you, may have noticed that there is a word that sticks out on this particular spreadsheet that is misspelled. That is for a reason. We're going to now do a spell check, and we're going to show you how the spell check works. In order to do that, we're going to basically have to highlight the area that we would like the spell check to cover. So we're going to start with the title, and we're going to scroll all the way down by highlighting the entire spreadsheet and locate the spell check function. So like most things Excel, there are multiple options. So I'm going to show you both. If you were to go to the Review tab, you'll notice that there's a spell check function here. If I were to click on it, a box will appear and you will see several words. They are all spelled correctly, but there's only one that I would like to choose. At that point, I would click Change and the word will change. However, I'm not going to use this option. I refer to the Quick Access Toolbar for most functions, and you have that same option for spell check. For instance, if you were to click on this drop down arrow, you will see that there's a spelling option. If you were to click on this, if it's not already in your Quick Access Toolbar, it will appear in your Quick Access Toolbar. So you would not have to refer to various tabs to locate it. You can remain in your Home tab or whatever tab that you're in and simply go to the Quick Access Toolbar and click on the icon. And that same box will appear, give you the same options. Now, in this particular case, the option that is highlighted is the option that I prefer. So I'm going to click Change, and you'll notice right away that another box will appear that will confirm that the word has been changed correctly. You click OK, and again, you can see that the word has been changed correctly. And that is all there is to spell check. At this point, we're going to actually revisit the print page layout to see how the new additions to this particular spreadsheet would look on paper and what adjustments will be needed to make it fit properly. So once again, we're going to now refer to the quick preview page in order to see what the spreadsheet would look like if printed at this particular point. And in this particular case, I'm going to just go ahead and go to the File tab and not the little icon in the Quick Access Toolbar, just because I've used it for the most part of the session. And we're going to scroll down to Print. And you can now see how the page would appear if printed currently. You'll note here that there are only 4 columns seen on the printed page. Remember, this is a pre-existing spreadsheet. We simply added to it. Because of this, the original format remains in place, which only accounts for 4 columns. You'll also note that the title is also skewed to the right. That is because there should be 5 columns as opposed to 4, and the title represents a 5th column that is no longer there, therefore it would be centered. For instance, when returning to the Home tab and clicking back to the original spreadsheet, you can see the page break here and here. And you'll notice that the page break now has column 5 on a separate page. And you'll see also that the title that looks centered here is skewed to the right if you were to print it at this particular point. At the beginning of this session, I actually showed you several types of layouts that will allow you to print the entire spreadsheet onto one page. However, at this point, I'm going to show you the easiest and simplest way to print this particular size spreadsheet on one page. So we're going to now go back to the print preview page. And again, I'm going to click on the Quick Access Toolbar icon this particular time. And I'm going to show you just a few steps that are needed to actually fit that entire spreadsheet onto this particular page. All right, but first, let's discuss some of the options that we have over here. Now, what you didn't see earlier was that at the very bottom of the preview page was page numbers. For instance, this lets you know that there are actually 2 pages. If you click the arrow to your left, you're going to go toward the first page. Going right, you will go toward all the multiple pages that are added in addition to the page 1. In this particular case, there are only 2, so you can see what the page will look like if printed, both pages. Now, by default, Excel is set to print only the first page, which is called Print Active Sheets. All right, so whatever sheet you see here, this is what will print unless you say otherwise. All right, which is where this is where you have the other options like print the entire workbook or print a selected page. Now, to print a selected page, you basically put in here what pages you want to print, or find the page that you would like to print by going here and click print selected page, all right, by going to the very bottom of the screen. All right, so let's go back to the active page. I want to put everything back in its default mode. All right, so here we have what's called portrait and we have landscape, and I'm going to show you just how beneficial this can be. All right, so for instance, we're going to say that we want all 5 columns on this one particular spreadsheet. Come here and we can go to narrow, but I'm not going to. We can come here where it says letter size. Now, this is your standard letter size document. This is the long paper. I don't know any other way to explain it except for that this is the long paper and this is the more normal size paper that you print on, right? So if you want the long size paper, clearly you can get more cells, you can get more columns on the longer version. However, the vast majority of people use the normal size paper, okay? Which is the letter size paper. So what we're going to do now is we're going to come here and I'm going to go to the page setup and I'm going to come over here and once again I'm going to click to fit to one page. Basically is what this is saying. Now I can say print to 2 by clicking up and down, but we want it to print to 1. And we're going to say okay. And as you can see, all 5 columns are now on the one page. However, they are much smaller. And the more columns that you have, the more smaller the print will be. In this particular case, this is clearly acceptable print for the vast majority of people. However, you can also make it larger by simply turning the page to the side. And this is where you will come to the portrait and landscape. By default, Excel is usually, if not always, going to be shown in the portrait orientation, which is the vertical long way up. The landscape is horizontal, turning sideways. And as you can see, the print, the fonts are much larger. So for the most part, a lot of people use this particular format when adding 6 or more columns onto a spreadsheet. So keep that in mind. And this is the way we're going to keep it for right now. So let's go back to the Home tab. And you'll now notice that the page breaks have been removed because the entire spreadsheet can now fit on one page. We can now turn our attention back to protecting the worksheet. But not only can we protect the worksheet, we can also protect the workbook. And there's a difference. For instance, by protecting the worksheet, you can actually, and we can go ahead and do this now, we can go ahead and click on Protect Worksheet. Again, I'm not going to include a password just because this is a tutorial. However, I would encourage you to input a password. And so at this point, you cannot come here to the top of the spreadsheet and move the columns. You can't come over to the rows and adjust the rows. Remember, you can only make changes to the area that was highlighted. Now, that is protecting the worksheet. If we were to protect the workbook, I will show you the difference. Basically, protecting the workbook is protecting the structure of the worksheets, not making any changes. For instance, you can come here and still input items into the columns. However, if I were to come to the tab below, and this is an unprotected workbook at this particular point and an unprotected worksheet. If I were to right click on the mouse, not left click, but right click, a pop-up window will appear, all right? Something similar to a dialog box. And you can see that there are functions that you can actually perform. For instance, you can insert a sheet, delete a sheet, rename a sheet, move, copy, and so on and so on. However, if I were to go up here and I were to click on Protect Workbook, and you'll notice that the structure is already checked, which means that the structure will be protected as well. I'm not going to touch Windows at this point. And again, I'm not going to input a password just because this is a tutorial. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now when I come down to the tab and right click on it, as you can see, only a few items are highlighted at this point, and neither can truly impact or affect the structure of the workbook as a whole. And that is what protecting the workbook consists of. Basically protecting the structure of the worksheets, all of them, not just one, but the entire workbook and all the sheets that are involved. Again, you can continue to type into the cells. However, that is about all you can do. You cannot insert another sheet. You cannot delete this sheet. Nor can you rename this sheet, and on and on and on. And again, renaming the sheet is down here in the tab as I have tutorial. I can't add another sheet because I'm trying to do it right now. I don't know if you can hear the clicking mark. And I can't come here and change this sheet name to another name. And that is what basically protecting the workbook consists of. Okay, this basically concludes our lesson for this session. I hope that you join me again for the following session. We're now going toward our more advanced Excel, and I definitely am very, very excited about it. I hope that you are too, and I look forward to you joining me again. Once again, thank you very much for choosing me.